The topic is Maldives, understanding the development of democracy uh, in uh, Maldives. Development of democracy, Maldives. So, to begin with, uh, there is an article by Clarence Meloni. Hmm? CL. Clarence Meloni has written an article long back. The Maldives. The Maldives new stresses in an old nation. The Maldives, new stresses in an old nation. It was published long back in 1976 in Asian Survey, University of California Press. I think you will be able to get that. And he says that we can trace the history of Maldives since 4th century BC. And we have to look the history in a nuanced manner, because from mere observation, the history looks very simple, though it is a little bit complicated. And he says that that the island, and you all know that Maldives is a collection of 1,192 islands, and that's why it is known as Maldives. So out of these, only 199 islands are inhabited. So we are talking about those islands, and he says that these islands have a history which can be traced back to 4th century BC. Now he argues that during this period, 4th century BC, the Tamils came from Kerala and also perhaps from Sri Lanka. They were inhabited. 4th century BC, the history of Maldives was nothing but history of Tamils coming from Kerala and Sri Lanka who were inhabiting. By early AD, Sinhalas also came from Sri Lanka. At that time it was Ceylon who came, and they brought the language as well as religion, that is Buddhism, there. Now it appears that they came in waves. It appears that they came in waves, and with them they brought architecture, especially stupa architecture, it is said. Stupa architecture, which is Sri Lankan architecture, and also they brought with themselves medieval Sinhala script, and also Sinhala kinship and political system. This is early AD. So there is a nuanced history of that. There has also been, because Maldives is a collection of islands 170 kilometers inside the sea. That means it comes in the sea route of many of the countries, and therefore, people passing by, they have also left their imprints on island, Maldives island, and therefore it is said, uh, the historians have argued that there have been cultural influences from Gujarat, Indonesia, China, Iran. So people who were traveling, those who were in business, they maritime, and therefore they could leave the imprint. So there is a mixed history of Maldives in the beginning, but a decisive turn took place in 1153. 1153, it is said that a Muslim saint came from Morocco and converted the king to Islam. And then in turn, king asked his subjects to convert to Islam. And therefore, a very new epoch in the history of Maldives started. Now, because he had come from the saint had come from Morocco, so what happened that the king proclaimed sultanate. He claimed himself as sultan, as the king was known as sultan, and the actually Maldives came to be known as sultanate of sultan. Now, during this period, Maldives was ruled by a succession of 93 sultans from 1153 to 1961. It remained a sultanate. That means for almost 808 years. 808 years it was under the guard of sultanate. And in 1953, or some people say that in 1953, democracy or republic came for 8 months, from January 1953 to August 1953, there was a bout of first republic. I will come to that later, but I'm just giving you that finally in 1961, monarchy was abolished. Now, during this period, 800 years, we can see that a government which was supported by Islamic ideals and code of Sharia. Now, in 1507, Portuguese discovered Maldives. 1498. So we see that how in 1507, Portuguese saw Maldives and they forced the Sultan to deliver an annual quantity of coir. Coir? Coir. This is coconut fiber rope for their imperial navies, because ropes were required at that time. So they asked them and forced them. Now, they wanted to govern Maldives while their seat was in Goa. So they tried their level best, and they started actually because they had also interest in fish, and fish was very important navigation supplies at that time. So Maldives, the Portuguese took Maldivian throne and tried to administer the country from Goa. But they could do only for 15 years because it was becoming difficult for them. And, also they were ousted by a popular revolt led by Maldivians. So we can see that how a local power could dislodge European. Nowhere it is seen in South Asia, but I think this is a very important example that they could oust. And one person called uh, yeah, I think I'm spelling Thakur Thakur Khan. Muhammad Muhammad Thakur Khan. I think we can find the right name. It is Thakur. I think URFAN. You can correct TAKURFURFAN, Thakur Khan, because he is important figure as far as a local myth is concerned, because he defeated the Christian world. That was the folklore which is very prominent in Maldives in during that time that it has actually told. So while they were ousted, and there became a new king, Muhammad Thakur Khan, and he started ruling, and he became a folk name in the Maldives. Now, having said this, it is also argued that the French and Dutch contact with Maldives was only in passing, but British in 1887 signed a treaty with the Maldivian Sultan and made it a protectorate. Protectorate is a country, important place where external affairs are looked by the aggressor party. In this, it is British, and they will not interfere in the internal matters, but they will definitely look after the external affairs and war. So we know that for 78 years, from 1887 to 1965, British kept the Maldives as its protectorate, and in 1965, Maldives became an independent nation. So this transition from a monarchy to democracy now begins from actually this particular point of view. Now we can also look into a little bit that the movement has not been very smooth. It is torturous, and we can see that how different kings, they were dethroned during this period, how different types of constitutions were promulgated, and how people threw and dethroned kings during this period. I, you know, is for us very important to look the one very important figure, and 1944. 1944 is a very important date, and it is here that Abdul